All right, folks, welcome to another weekly Manchester United show on Beyond the Pitch. I'm your host, as always, Phil Brown, joined my regular co-host there, Colm. And I swore I woke up to my alarm clocks. They say our love won't pay the rent. For it's earned, our money's always spent. I
Oh,
got you, babe.
nice.
I got
Yeah.
you, babe.
I'll see you later, mate. All right. Good luck.
Jealousy, get to know where we might. Jealousy, get to know where we're Groundhog Day. Did I wake up in 2020? You didn't need a left foot centre back. They need a winger. They needed a forward, defensive midfielder. Spend all summer chasing their major target. Don't get him, and then go for Ismail Assar. I mean, it's 2020 all over again.
See, to be honest, right? I know you're probably. I'm going to get hammered for this. I don't mind the Ismail Assar signing. I like it. I don't
No.
mind it.
Let me say something, mate.
But I know what you're referring to is that it's reactive, not proactive. It's not our number one target. I know everything that you're going to spiel off here at me.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever we think about what Manchester United need, we need someone like Ismail Assar. Maybe not Ismail Assar, but he is the best of a bad bunch at the moment, if we put it that way.
But Colm, this is what's got United into problems over and over again. This reductive thinking. He'll do a job. Do we send Alex Jones because he'll do a job? Maybe he'll help the club with the marketing, but who cares about his personality? Who cares about any of this? We don't need players that will do a job, because doing a job against who? Against Liverpool, against Man City. They'll not do a job against them. Right? They'll not do a job getting United back to the top of the Premier League where they should be. They'll do a job getting you because you see, big teams that are serious about winning trophies don't target these players. I got no problems with them if Erik ten Hag walks in and says, I want him. You better judge of a player than me. Right? Just because I'm going to throw my toys out of the pram because they're not players that I want doesn't mean that that's right. But none of these are a result of a long, extensive recruitment process, evaluation process, saying he's the right guy. He's the right guy because you're desperate. And when you do that, like United have done time after time, how many of these players? Where did Telles go? This is what Adrian Rabiot is. A Telles, right? You need to be loaning him out a year from now, trying to get someone to take his wages.
I disagree with you on Rabiot. I think Rabiot is a good player. He's not our number one target. But what's to say he's not our number two target?
Man, I know I've taken some serious shrooms over the years.
What's to say?
It's possible I'm seeing double there. I'll give you that.
But one second, right? 1 second.
Yeah.
What's to say that it's got to the stage where Ten Hag goes, right, Frankie De Jong's a non-starter here. It's not going to happen. I think De Jong's still going to happen very soon, actually. But in terms of what it is, what's to say he's not? What's to say that Rabiot isn't the backup? Why are we all so quick to jump down the throats of, for example, you actually said something very poignant on this podcast when Ten Hag was appointed. I know you didn't think so. Whenever he was appointed, you said Ten Hag's going to make mistakes. Ten Hag's going to sign people that we don't want him to sign. Yep. Ten Hag's going to do things that we don't like as fans. We're seeing it right now. What's to say Adrian Rabiot isn't part of that?
Listen, you bring back the first cause, okay? It's not that, it's the problem. It's the reason why that is happening. It's the problem, okay? If these are Ten Hag's first choices, calmness matters, okay? If Ten Hag walks in and says, I want this guy, right? Okay, fine. Right? Liverpool's dressing room is filled with players that aren't Galacticos, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, James Milner, full of players that will do a job for you. But they're the result of an extensive evaluation process that arrives at a conclusion. But United work from top down. Opposite. Okay, now we're in the process of ringing agents to see who's available. There's no way Adrian Rabiot was a consideration for United a month ago or 2 weeks ago. This player, Juventus have been trying to pay off to leave on a free. That's how good he is, right? And Aaron Ramsey. How did he do last season at Rangers? Where is he now? So we've got an Aaron Ramsey that Juventus are desperate to get off the wage bill, desperate to get out of the team to buy a better player, right, with United's money. Are you telling me that Adrian Rabiot is the result of Erik ten Hag saying, If Frankie de Jong doesn't happen, we want Adrian Rabiot.
Well, we don't know
I don't
that.
believe that.
But we don't know that.
Well, he was available 2 months ago. Why didn't they go get him?
Because there's so many factors in this, right? The main factor being that de Jong still, we don't know if he's coming or going. It's as simple as that. That's layman's terms. We don't know if he's coming or going. We don't know if he's going to United. We don't know if he's going to Chelsea. We don't know if he's leaving Barcelona, right?
If you're targeting Adrian Rabiot and Marko Arnautovic, what are you doing? Trying to stay up?
Okay. Arnautovic we'll get to in a second, right? Adrian Rabiot was a very good player whenever he was up and coming, right? He was tipped to be a great player. Yeah, he was tipped to be a great player. I know he's 27. He had a good season. Jones. He had a good season at PSG. He went to Juventus and he was an average player. He's been average since then. I think that's fair enough. Yeah, he's average since then. This is the unfortunate reality of being.
So he's been average and he's stood out United scouts.
Yes, but this is what I'm saying.
This is what they're going to put up against De Bruyne.
This is what I'm saying.
He's
an upgrade on what we
Calvin
have.
Phillips.
It's as simple as that.
We're going to stick in Adrian Rabiot and Marko Arnautovic.
Okay, how happy are you watching McFred at the weekend? How happy are you watching McFred?
I know, but I'd rather. What's my choices? A shit sandwich with sauce or a shit sandwich without?
Well, this is my point. But this is my point. This is the point I'm giving you. It's a head fuck. It really is, because you don't understand why they're making these moves. But at the end of the day, it's an upgrade. It's an upgrade.
Let's just accept the fact right now that Manchester United are not intending to catch Liverpool and Man City. Let's just accept that, because
I think that's obvious.
All right. So what we have to accept right now, as fans, we look at this club through a whole different lens. We look at this in a much more holistic macro picture. We look at the football club with its history, which determines how it should go forward. But the reality of the situation is, if you take away United's history, United aren't a top football club. Nor are they behaving like one, nor are they trying to be one, nor are they trying to catch a Liverpool or a Manchester City. Cruising altitude for Manchester United is just not being shit enough to where it's going to cause protests, but just enough to give you belief that they're actually serious about winning. But they're not really, right? You don't buy Adrian Rabiot if you want to catch Manchester City. Why didn't they buy him? They needed a midfielder. Why didn't Liverpool buy him? They needed a midfielder. Why didn't Arsenal buy him? Why didn't any top club buy him? Instead of trying to pay off to get rid of him.
I know what you're saying, and I'm not debating
that matters.
This guy's average. It does matter, right?
I don't even think he's average. I think he's below average.
Who else is there out there at the moment? Why are we not promoting
worst season at Juventus?
Okay,
he just had his worst ever season at Juventus.
Who else is out there, and why are we not promoting?
Okay, so this is not a question for you or for me. This is a question for the people that are paid millions a year.
And this gets back.
So what are they? If you and I have to come up with these answers, what are they doing?
Well, that's it. That's the $1 million question. And that's where it all goes back to what we've said. You've said it from the beginning, ranking competence. I've said reactive, not proactive. And what do we know? Same old Manchester United. What has changed from about really 2010 probably?
What did PSG do this summer when needed midfielders? Renato Sanchez, Vitinha. Who else is out there? No idea, man.
But this is what I'm saying. They acted at the beginning of the transfer window. Whenever I made a comment on this podcast,
a few days ago.
When I made a comment on this podcast, I think it was probably the beginning of July, and you said, "Mate, we're 4 days into the transfer market. Relax."
Yeah, you have to. Yes, because
we relax.
But your views have to be based on evidence. To be fair, so you have to give them the opportunity. But now we've seen United can't work towards the end of the transfer window being their benchmark. They have to work towards the start of the season being the stationary target, not the end of the window. Because if there was no window in the olden days, what are you going to do? Drag it out for 9 months? Then go, sorry, Eric, we'll try to get him, but we couldn't. It's absolutely unconscionable to me to think that this football club sat there with Barcelona and De Jong and were used as leverage again by Barcelona and De Jong. Instead of turning around a month ago and saying, lads, we've got a complex problem here. We'd love to sign you, Frankie. Barcelona, we'd love to sign your player, but I'm going to force both of your hands here, because what we're not going to do is make sure our football club's recruitment strategy is based upon the outcome of a Frankie de Jong Barcelona contract situation. You take control of the situation. No other top football club does that. Nobody. So what you do is you force Barcelona and you force Frankie de Jong into a situation to say, if you really want to come to Manchester United, you get a solution to this. All right, we're going to impose a deadline 2 weeks from now. Force the issue. And if they turn around after 2 weeks and say we're no closer to solving this problem than what we were when we first started, then you move on.
The
But you
solution
don't sit
was
there and go at the end of the disco, well, I was hoping you were going to sort it out with your boyfriend or so we could leave together, and now you two are still together. I mean, what is this nonsense?
The solution was you paid the deferred wages. You take the hit that we need this player, we need to go sign and we pay the deferred wages, right? Whether we like it or not, that was the solution. Simple. The Glazers don't have the money. The Glazers won't spend the money. The club's a shambles. That's it in layman's terms. If we think about what Ten Hag said whenever he came to this club, he said that he would have the final say on transfers. He said if it wasn't his targets, he wouldn't sign them. He said he would promote within if he couldn't get these. Why is Eric Ten Hag the man for this job? Why is he the man that at the moment we're all expecting to get us out of this situation? It's not happening. Nothing's changed.
What if any of the problem is Eric Ten Hag's? What if any of it?
It's not. But if he's a man of his word and he's true to his word, is Rabiot his signing? Is Rabiot going to be his signing? Was Arnautovic his signing?
I have no doubt.
Because if it is, then we've got an issue.
Well, I have no doubt that it's a process of elimination. That it's like, hey, all those other top 20 strikers we couldn't get, so we'll take him out of desperation. Where Ten Hag does deserve criticism, and Steve McLaren deserves criticism, that racism stuff happened under Ten Hag's watch at FC20, so he knew about it. So he doesn't escape responsibility and blame for trying to sign a flagrant racist and sexist in a Manchester United shirt, which is supposed to be a unifying force in the dressing room. And by the way, it's not up to Ten Hag or Steve McLaren to forgive what Arnautovic did. It's up to Fred, it's up to Malacia, it's up to Marcus Rashford, it's up to people like that, because Steve McLaren and Ten Hag weren't the victims. They weren't the recipients of that abuse. All right, it's up to the Man United women's team. It's not up to Richard Arnold or anyone else at Manchester United to say, yeah, but. There is no yeah, but with racism. And this is a problem with morals when they cost money. When there's a material cost to being moral, then that compass starts to get out of calibration. A football club that took the knee, it took the knee whilst knowingly pursuing a racist. Now, if a fan had have done what Marco Arnautovic done at Old Trafford, they'd be banned for life. So why is he allowed to step inside Old Trafford? And by the way, they had to be shamed into pulling out of it. Again, an illustration of the utter incompetence and disconnect between the people that run that football club and football reality. The fans, once again, had to tell them that this isn't right. Just like the Super League.
That's a
How are you that thick?
That's a complete shambles.
What does it tell you?
Emails from fans. It took everything that it did in order to put a stop to Marco Arnautovic being signed. Why that even got to the stage it got to is beyond me. I can't understand it. I want to know what these scouts at this football club are doing day in, day out. I want to know what's going on behind the scenes. What is John Murda's role? What is Richard Arnold's role? What's going on at this football club? It's not changed from the days of Woodward and Solskjaer. I don't care what anyone says. It hasn't changed. It's the exact same. It's all it is a different guy leading the shape. That's it. It's a different shepherd. There's nothing else. There's nothing's changed.
What have I been saying for months here, man? Manchester United, the way they're run is not an accident. They ignored every piece of competent football advice they've been given, and they've done it for a decade. Okay? This is a consequence of the ideology of the owners. And I said they wouldn't become benevolent. They wouldn't all of a sudden give Richard Arnold newfound powers that they didn't get before to be nice to fans. They don't give a fuck about you or me. They don't give a fuck. They don't care. They don't care what you think. They don't care that you hurt. They don't care that United lose. They don't care how embarrassing it is. As long as their pocket are lined, that's the only metric they care about. Do you think they bought Man? I mean, this is a rhetorical question. They didn't buy United because they want them to win the league. They didn't buy United because of European Cups. They bought United because it's a cash cow. But the problem is when you buy United in 2005, when the financial situation in football was completely different, and you had a genius at the helm, right, who, of course, is largely responsible for Glazers being there, you could get away with it. But now Manchester United are shopping in a different market. Now you've got billionaires owning football clubs. United can't compete with that. They can't operate with their primary function to line the pockets of the owners, but also compete in the transfer market. This is obvious by the signings that they're making. Rabiot and Arnautovic would not be on Pep Guardiola's list. They certainly wouldn't be on Jurgen Klopp's list, and nor would they be on Real Madrid, the real biggest club in the world. Okay, that won the European Cup in France and Spanish League, who, by the way, next season Barcelona aren't even a threat to, went out and spent 100 million on Tchouaméni. There wasn't a gap in valuation with a kid, right? There wasn't a gap in valuation with Mbappe, right? That's what the biggest teams in the world do. Adrian Rabiot, well, I lost you anyway. I'll keep going till you come back. Adrian Rabiot and Arnautovic is genuinely in comparison. Compare Arnautovic and Rabiot with Tchouaméni and Mbappe, Rudiger. I mean, I've taken some serious gear in my time, like, but I'm not that bad.
It's shocking. Like if we look around, even just look at City. Look at the options off the bench. When they're taking Rodri off and bringing on Calvin Phillips, and we're stuck with McFred, it's laughable. Like, honestly, the strength and depth of other teams in the Premier League, even think of teams like Spurs, Arsenal, all have much better squads than us. We're Manchester United. We're talking about Spurs and Arsenal here. Forget about even Chelsea. Forget about Liverpool. Forget about City. They've cemented themselves as big clubs. Newcastle have better strength and depth than us.
Man, when you have
it's embarrassing.
They're pound stretcher signings. Okay, let's be honest. Like, look here. Let's just look at United signings, right? So Lisandro Martinez is a decent sign, no question, right? And Christian Eriksen, there was a competition between United and Brentford. No other top team was in for Christian Eriksen, right? No other top team looked at Christian Eriksen. Good player that he is, no question. The rest of United signings are Bournemouth signings. They're signings you make to stay up. They're not signings you make to win a league. Right? Malacia, good young left back. Rabiot. Now, if Rabiot's going to Southampton, Bournemouth, or someone, I'm going, okay, that makes sense to me. Or a mid-table team, makes sense to me. Because he's already shown doesn't belong at the top level in any serious football team, right? Turned down in the World Cup for France because he refused to be on the reserve list. A player that's had issues, right, in the dressing room. This is what happens. You see, you start compromising morals and principles because you can't afford morals and principles, so you start signing shit. And that infests the dressing room. You start signing players that have no other choice. When you've got an employer, right, paying to get rid of you, and your scouts have identified him as a solution to your problems, what fucking problem? I want to know what Manchester United scout looked at Adrian Rabiot and said, there's a solution to our problems, and how he saw that. I want to know.
I don't think it gets down to that. I don't think there's a scout at Manchester United that said that, Rabiot's the guy. It's got to the point where De Jong may or may not happen. They need a backup. Rabiot's the backup. He's an easy option. He's a signing that they can make cheap. He's not someone that's going to cost us a lot.
There you go.
And that's why he's in that position. At the end of the day, though, Phil, right, we need to support any player comes in this football club.
No, we don't.
No,
we do.
We do.
Mate, no, hold on a minute.
This is where there's a toxic fan base. And in terms of, it isn't Adrian Rabiot's fault that he's being sent. It's
correct. I agree with
levels that. Above, right? It's incompetence from John Murdoch, Richard Arnold, Ten Hag actually too, because he's promised us that they were his signings, right? Well, this isn't Adrian Rabiot. Well, it ultimately is because he's the manager of the football club. Wait a second. It is. He's the manager of the football club.
It's imposed on him.
He came out and told us. Imposed on him. He came out and told us that he was the one making the final decision.
He can't go out and make the decision. Is it Ten Hag's fault that United didn't turn a profit in the last 3 months?
Hey, come off it.
No, seriously. Where does his responsibility start and end? If he's responsible for going out,
he's the manager of the football club.
He's the manager of the football team.
Second. Okay, no. If you're the manager of Iceland, and someone comes in and starts working in Iceland, right? And they're hired.
No, it's not analogous. It's not.
You're the one that makes the final. No, but you're the one that makes the final decision if they join the team.
No,
Ten Hag has a remit. He's come in and he said it. I don't even need to put words in his mouth. I'm the one making final decision on transfers. He said that. Has he said it?
He's the one that makes final decisions on the players that he wants. He doesn't make the final decision on how much you need to pay for a player. You think if Ten Hag got the players he wanted, De Jong would have been there 3 months ago.
This is my point.
Anthony would have been
You've
there.
just said it.
Anthony and De Jong would have been there 2 months ago. Where are they?
No,
His
mate.
fault they're
But
not
what I'm
there?
saying is,
No.
he had-
You made an analogy. Let's deal with that. Because if
That
you're
makes
not
no sense.
responsible for recruiting people, you're only responsible for deciding who you want to recruit. You know, I can decide that I want to win the lottery, right? But someone has to go and buy the ticket and do it for me. And if they don't do it, it's not a realistic
Again, mate,
hope. So
I don't know.
So here's the thing. Eric Ten Hag's job is to tell the Manchester United recruitment team who he wants, and it's their job to secure them, which they didn't do. Okay? So that's not his fault. So if I ask for a left back and I get a plumber, it's not his fault. That's Manchester United's fault. And it was the fault under Mourinho, as you said, hey, listen, I finished second in 2018, and people have no idea what was going on behind the scenes. It wasn't Solskjaer's fault that they didn't get Haaland and Bellingham, right? That's Manchester United's fault. Wasn't Moyes' fault that they didn't get Fabregas. That's Manchester United's fault that they didn't get Bale. That's Ed Woodward's fault. That's the Glazers' fault, not the manager. Okay.
Right. Okay. Ten Hag came out at the beginning of this, and did he or did he not say, "I have the final decision on incomings and outgoings"?
He doesn't have he has the final.
So he
say
lied to
who
us
they
then?
go-
So he
he
lied
has
to
the-
us then?
No. You're just misunderstanding. The lies and intent to deceive. What he said was he has final decision on who United bring in, but not how they bring them in. Right? So it's up to Man. Listen, if I send you to the shop, okay, and say get me 10 Regal King size, and you don't have enough, and you come back with a 10p mix up, whose fault is it? Mine or yours?
That's that analogy.
It's the same thing.
Because it's not because we're talking about football.
Man, he doesn't
He's
write
the
the
manager.
checks. Tell me this: what players did Ten Hag came into that football club and said two priorities were a forward? He said it himself. It's vital that a forward's brought in. Wanted Anthony, wanted De Jong. Where are they?
Yes, and this is my point. He is the manager of the football club.
So he was supposed to go and negotiate with Ajax and get a deal done on the terms, because it wasn't him that didn't agree to pay. It was Manchester United. You should have wrote a check in his own pocket and go, here, lads, I'll pay for it.
I know, but we're being ridiculous now because if those okay. So if these two players that you've just spoke about,
tell me this: if Ten Hag gets hired by Bournemouth and says, "I want Messi," and they don't sign him.
Okay, so where did Arnautovic come from? Do you think that
came as a result of United's complete inability to secure the targets that he asked for?
So are you papering over the cracks that it's
Of course, they're papering over the cracks. What's he supposed to do? His choice is walk or leave or stay with his shape.
So was it? I'm asking you a question. Was it Ten Hag's decision to go for Arnautovic?
I would say he eventually agreed to it, like Solskjaer.
Okay,
but it wasn't his first choice.
Exactly. And Robbie,
okay, so again, I call you and say, here, man, I can't get them 10 Regal King size, but I can get you a single on 10p mix. Well, it's not really what I want, but I'll have to fucking do.
No. Ten Hag came. No. Look, we're going around and around.
Tell me how Eric Ten Hag's responsible for making sure United sign the players that he asks for. And I'll take your point.
Okay, I'll switch it. Is Pep,
no,
is
don't
Pep,
switch it. Tell me how he's responsible for closing deals. Now listen.
Huh? Is Pep responsible at City?
First of all,
what pool does he have at
First of all,
City?
Pep is asking people where the bottomless pit of cash. I'm asking you, and he still doesn't negotiate the signings. That has nothing to do with him. Hence the reason why he didn't get Cucurella. So I'm asking you, what responsibility does Ten Hag have in securing players for Manchester United?
When you come in,
don't answer with the question. Answer the question.
When you come into a club like Manchester United and you promise the fans the world, which he did, right? I'm not getting on to that.
He didn't promise anything. People with a functioning brain can know that he doesn't sign players. That's a result of a recruitment department, the finance department.
Well, okay,
Colm, you know this.
Well, no, I know, but what I'm saying is when he comes into the club, it's up to him to tell the club his targets, tell him who the backup targets are, and tell the club who he wants to sign, right? You go, do your work, come back to me, right?
Where are those words? Where are those
Me and you, yeah. Let me finish. Me and you both don't know that Rabiot was second choice to De Jong. We don't know that because it could have been. It probably was.
The reports are they want Rabiot as well as De Jong. Now Rabiot's been available for 2 months. So I'll ask you, if he wanted Rabiot, why didn't they go for him 2 months ago?
Because we wanted De Jong.
They want him and De Jong.
Honestly, you're
They
miles
want
off
him
it here.
and De Jong. That's the reports.
It's simple that Ten Hag, when he's making decisions, has clearly bowed
Sorry,
over.
mate, that was a goalpost move, isn't it?
No, but he's bowed over to the Glazers. Something that you talked to me about.
Oh, so it's the Glazers' fault then. Now we got there.
What?
Now we got there. So he bowed to the Glazers because they're the ones that ultimately make the decisions.
But this is my point.
Thank you.
So why? No, but you're not even getting the point.
Mate, this is not Football Manager. A manager goes and asks the club to go recruit the people that he needs. Mourinho's told you this. Van Gaal's told you this. Solskjaer's told you this. Everyone has told you this.
What's changed?
Nothing. So it's not the manager's fault that they don't get the players that they want. He can't kidnap them. He can't write a check for them himself. It's up to the football club.
Ten Hag clearly identified Rabiot. I don't care what you say, what you tell me. Well, if you tell me Neil Costas from the Sun says it must be true. I don't care.
No, I didn't tell you Neil Costas. I didn't tell you Neil Costas.
He wants Rabiot.
I have not. Listen, Eric Ten Hag asked for players he didn't get, and now we're going down the list. That's
his list. Vital word.
Well, I would say he certainly has a say in that. But here's the thing, Colm. Again, right? He asked for the people that he needed to do. This is what I'm talking about. I made this analogy yesterday with Gordon Ramsay. I needed first-class ingredients to bake you a gourmet meal. Well, I can't afford those. Well, I'll have to make do with other shit then. And that's where we're at. Ryan Gravenberch was available for 25 million. Better than Rabiot.
Better than Rabiot.
On it. Right? Over and over and over again. No coherent, no joined up thinking. Sergio Milinkovic-Savic is a totally different player to Frankie de Jong. Arnautovic or Nice Gakpo, two different players, completely different players. If you need a physical element up front and that's what you target, then do that. But now it's back to a winger.
The problem is that we as fans, because that's what we are, you both fans. Nothing else. We expect the world. We expect Manchester United. We expect Manchester United of old, and it's quite simple. We just have to get used to the fact that it's not going to be like that, and it's not going to be like that for some time now.
Of course,
this is just getting ridiculous. But what do we need to do? What do we need to do to change? Does Ten Hag need to walk and say, "Look, you didn't back in the transfer market. You promised me this. It didn't happen." Do we need to? Is there some sort of? I can't ever see it happen because we're so massive, so big globally, that it just couldn't happen. But is it that all the fans need to walk out of the Liverpool game, the biggest game of the season, and just leave Liverpool fans in the stadium? Is that something that's going to happen?
It would have to be sustained. It would have to look. The only way you're getting rid of the Glazers is if you get rid of the only incentive they have to own the football club, and that's their profit. Once there's no money for them to take, there's no incentive for them to own the football club. But they're on their last legs because they've no more gimmicks. They didn't get the new manager bounce with Ten Hag. They usually appease fans one of two ways, with signings or results, which they can do neither right now. So what's left to appease Manchester United fans to stop them from protesting? There's nothing. So the financial markets are disgraced, terrible. The future economic projections are terrible. Their ability to generate revenue comes from selling shares, and all they've got left to sell is voting rights shares, which will prohibit their ability to take money out. So that's a one-time hit. Or, of course, through either selling players or on the field success. Now, if you look at COVID, when United didn't have fans in the stadium, and how quickly they had to borrow 100 million operating profit, that tells you how quickly that would hurt. It's not going to happen because United support base is just too fragmented. And so not everybody feels the same way about this. There's a core element of United fans that do, but you're never going to get Old Trafford empty. And so I wish it would happen, but that's one of the consequences of having a global fan base.
But where does it end? Like, how can we continue to be in this position years upon years where everything. It just seems to get worse. It's like every year there's a peak where we get second a couple of years ago in the Solskjaer, and we're back on, and then boom, we're back right back down again. Where does it end?
Well,
how does it end?
It's going to end eventually because what is going on right now is unsustainable. And as you heard with Richard Arnold, the money's just not there anymore, right? And so when United continue to lose money, if you look at all the financial metrics, they're terrible. So they don't have the expertise to run the football club like Liverpool. And I just don't think it's commensurate with the ideology of the owners anyway. So I have a feeling that we're in the toady stream, the death spiral of Manchester United at the moment, where this season, brace yourself, it's going to be bad, in my opinion. I don't see United maybe they'll make one more big signing, but it's not enough. Nowhere near enough. I mean,
you think there's only going to be one more signing this summer?
No, I think there'll be more than one more.
No.
I think there'll be more than one signing. I'm talking about one real signing. Right? I still think there'll be a decent midfielder brought in on top of Rabiot, because a real football club would have done what PSG did. Vitinha and Renato Sanchez in midfield would have been a massive upgrade on Scott McTominay and Fred. Massive. I mean, these are two players that were technically exposed against Brighton, who were completely incapable of playing the way Ten Hag wanted. Eventually, had to take Eriksen and drop him deep just to do the most basic thing, to connect defence to midfield. So they're all over the place when they don't have the ball, right? And so any good organised team should expect to beat United until there's massive improvement. And I look at these fixtures. I'm going to ask you a question. What team in the league are you confident of beating?
Honestly, I'm worried about going away to Brentford. That's the truth. I'm worried. I think Brentford are going to turn us over as well. That's going to be 2 in a row. There's no team in the league at the moment I could comfortably say we'll go and beat.
Jesus Christ, my hair's putting a transfer request in. Sorry, mate.
It is that thing. I was going to say at the start, I didn't want to offend you.
Offend me? Take a bit deeper on that one. But I like, no, mate, it's brutal. Here's the thing, right? We're United fans where we all wanted to believe that things were going to be different. We all wanted to believe that we're going to get this new confidence and everything was going to change under Richard Arnold. And all these big promises that he made. And I said to you, he's the second most senior employee at this football club. His attempt to divorce himself from this debacle that's been happening for the last 10 years really is lowest. It's unacceptable because that's totally unfair to Ed Woodward. Richard Arnold, maybe even more than Ed Woodward, was a protagonist for everything that's happened, Super League, everything else, right? No doubt about it, okay? He has the job because he thinks exactly like Ed Woodward, okay? So that's who the Glazers want in that position. Obviously, they're the highest paid executives in the league, which clearly has nothing to do with football. So there's clearly more important metrics than being successful on the pitch to the Glazers. Otherwise, they wouldn't compensate these people the way they do. They're also integral, heavily involved in the recruitment process, which is why they don't sack someone for these bad signings, because they're as much a part of it as anyone else. And clearly, Avram Glazer flew to United on Sunday to watch this match and to meet with Ten Hag. Now, the last time United started under a Dutchman and lost their first game 2-1, they panicked and bought Di Maria. But there's a massive difference panicking with 60 million and 60p.
Well, like, who even is out there that we could possibly sign?
Forget about Rabiot. Big clubs don't have these problems. PSG didn't have a problem.
We have this problem at the moment.
PSG have
like, who's out there at the moment that we can sign? Rabiot, I know you don't rate him, right? 1 second. Rabiot, you don't rate him. I rate him. He starts for France, right? He's made a lot of caps for France. He's a good midfielder, no matter what you say, right? Juventus turnover players like there's no tomorrow. We both know that. They wanted rid of Ronaldo. They wanted rid of Pogba. You can laugh all you want. Rabiot,
I've asked Juventus fans. I've asked people that I trust in the game that make a living in the game, and I've asked them about him.
Okay, well, look, you form your opinion on other people's.
No, I'm not forming an opinion. I'm taking their opinion. It's better informed than mine.
Well, okay. Well, I'll make my own. He's a good player, right? He is. He's a good player. He'll prove you wrong, I think, at United. I don't think he's the answer to our problems, but I think he's a better than average player in terms of what you've said about him's harsh, right? It's also not his fault. We've both established that it's not his fault. So we can't get on a player whenever he comes into the club because then it's toxic, right?
So he's
about him for a
very, very
moment.
good. He just hasn't shown that yet in his career.
Well, he had a great season under Ancelotti at PSG. Great season. Then he went to Juventus and he hasn't been great.
When was that, mate?
Ultimately. How many years ago now? A few years ago now?
5 years ago in the French league, he had a great season in the French league. And then when he moved to the Italian league, what happened?
He still plays for France, though.
Well,
he's good for France.
Yeah, I'll have to take your word for it. But I looked at his career at Juventus last season. You know his past completion rate is?
Over the past.
You know his past completion rate is? Colm, do you know his past completion rate is?
You're just trying to.
It's about the same completion rate I have with AA.
Okay, so he's played around 30 games for Juventus each of the last 3 seasons.
No many goals
well, we're average. I'm saying on average. Forget about goals.
Why? Does that not matter in football?
He's not a goal scoring midfielder. Though. He's a holding midfielder.
What is he?
He's a holding midfielder, and that's what we need.
Midfielder?
Yeah.
Well, that's not where Juventus are playing him.
But this is what I'm saying. We're judging him on Juventus at the moment. He was good a few years ago. You can say all you want, Phil. I'm telling you, you're getting on.
Okay, well, he was good a few years ago. This is this from the scouts from a few years ago? Well, surely they would have moved from 2 months ago then.
Someone that bases their opinion on their own. You've just based your opinion off your friends that you're speaking to.
I don't. My friends. I'm talking about Juventus fans that watch football that make a living out of the game.
I don't take other people's opinions.
Okay, right? but if they're better informed than you, you should.
Should I?
Yes, if someone's better informed than you on an issue, you should listen to them more than yourself. That's important.
I'm not having it. I'm not having it. Especially, I don't know who your friends are. Like, you just
but these are people that make a living in the game. These are people.
Give me names.
But here, David Amayal is one of them.
Okay, so he's a respected opinion. And what's he said about Rabiot?
I've just told you. They laughed.
What?
Tancredi Palmieri.
What did he say about Rabiot?
Laughed. Said if they got ice, he said, "Is their ice painted on?" Because have they watched this guy? Take a look at Juventus fans' comments on social media.
We're very quick to jump down players.
Well, man, again, these are people that are. If some kid asks you about McTominay, you'd never watched them before, would you say you're better informed than him?
That is never. I would say you are, but I've watched Rabiot.
Of course, so that's the point.
Rabiot.
Okay, so they're better informed than you on the topic and me.
Again, you're forming your opinion on other people.
No, that's not my opinion. This is the opinion of people that watch him every week.
Yeah, so you just told me that you based your opinion on them.
Okay, so if you've got better information than someone that watches him every week that makes a living out of the game, then I'll defer to your better view. Do you watch him every week?
No,
do you?
Don't, of course.
Okay, so then, Colm, you have to accept that there's people that are better informed on this issue than you and I.
Of course,
who do watch him every week.
My opinion on him that I've seen.
You can have your opinion, but I'm just.
I've seen him against Northern Ireland under 21s. I've seen him play up close. I've seen him whenever he was younger playing against Northern Ireland under 21s. He was great.
Man, he's 27.
I know. Okay, you can still play under 21 when you're a bit older than 21. We both know that. Stay until you're 23. The point is that there's positives to take out of these signings. You can laugh all you want, Phil. The fact is that you're a deluded United fan, and you have been. You're of that age where you're going to sit here and you're going to tell me stuff and you're going to laugh and talk down to me.
Man, I'm not talking down to you. I'm talking down. I'm not talking down.
Okay,
I'm laughing at if that was United's scouts' view that he had a good game against Northern Ireland in the under 21s, and that's what designated him as a target. Fuck's sake, man! Come on, it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd.
I didn't say. I'm just.
City signed Calvin Phillips when they needed a midfielder. City signed Calvin Phillips when they needed a midfielder. Would you put Rabiot on the same breath as Calvin Phillips? He's a holding midfielder.
I've never once said that.
So why not? Why can't he be in the same bracket? He costs 50 million.
We're not good enough. It's
there we are. That's the point. They're saying shit because that's what they are.
If we were serious, we'd be talking about better players.
So what's the positive we should take out of this? Because you said to me, we're going to see a Manchester United we've never seen before. Last week.
Season started. Yes, I said it.
What happened?
Because I'm optimistic.
What did I tell you? What did I tell you? What happened?
We haven't made the signings that we should have made. We haven't
Thank
done
you.
anything.
Now we got there.
No, but I'm still talking about it. You're jumping down a player's throat. It's not his fault.
He's not good enough.
He's joining the club, but we haven't seen him yet. Let's see what he's
We've
like.
seen him play every week for, as you said, for France and Juventus. He's shit.
I completely. I think that's harsh.
You're entitled to your opinion.
Okay.
I really,
And
honestly.
you're entitled to yours, right? We'll see. We'll see.
Maybe he'll wave a magic wand and show something he's never shown in 7 years. Maybe, hopefully.
It's not about waving a magic. And I'm not saying that he's the answer to all the problems. I'm not saying he's a replacement for De Jong. I'm not saying that he's been playing a box to box role at Juventus as well. Okay, so he's not been playing in a number 6 role. He's been playing box to box for Juventus.
What other box is he getting? And he scored 0 goals.
But that's what I'm saying. He's not
scored the same amount of goals for Juventus last season that I did.
Mate, honestly, but you're jumping down a player's throat, but it isn't his fault.
Give me a reason to believe that he could be decent, and I'll accept it.
If he's not good enough when he joins Manchester United, and then you've got a fair comment to say, you know what, this kid isn't good enough. We've made the wrong decision again.
So should we try Billy down the street and give him a crack playing for Man United and see if he's good enough, or should there be evidence to suggest that you deserve the move? At 27.
He's not just Billy down the street.
So if we're just going to give players a crack, why don't we give out five crisp packets and you get a start for United?
No, I made a point.
We'll see if you're good enough.
Ten Hag said he would promote from within. Why is James Garner?
Because he's not good enough.
James Garner could be good enough though.
But that's Ten Hag's decision. Who's better informed than you and me? He's not good enough. He's had him all pre-season.
No, then again, he lagged us at the start because he said, if I can't get my targets, I'll promote within.
What
so
he didn't say...
We did say if he didn't get his targets, so Rabiot was one of his targets because he did tell us that.
Yeah, but he didn't say everyone would play.
Okay, but he did say, if I can't get my targets in, I'll be promoting from within. That tells us that Rabiot is one of his targets. So
doesn't say that Rabiot is one of his targets. Colm, you've been watching United long enough, all right? And you know the way this football club functions. Are you telling me that Facundo Pellistri was the long-term target of Solskjaer's? You know why Pellistri happened, right? Happened because of Diego Forlan calling United and telling him to sign him. Are you telling me that Ahmad Traore was the long-term target of Solskjaer's? Are you telling me that Cavani was the long-term target of Solskjaer's? They signed 4 players on the deadline day in January 2020. They had exactly the same shopping list that they had this year, and they done exactly the same thing that they did in 2020. Are you telling me Van de Beek was Solskjaer signing? Are you telling me Ronaldo was Solskjaer signing? We both know that they weren't.
The difference is Solskjaer didn't come out and tell us.
Well, he's not going to, mate. You know that.
But why did Ten Hag do it then?
Ten Hag do what?
Ten Hag came out and said, any signing I make, I will have the
Solskjaer
ultimate
said that
decision.
too.
And if not, I will promote from within.
If not,
I will promote from within.
Solskjaer said that too.
I'm not having it.
Solskjaer said, I have final say on transfers. He did.
Well, you've just told me he didn't, so he lied to us as
well. No,
he
did. Solskjaer said I have final say on transfers. What I thought you were asking a different question. I thought you were saying, why didn't he come out and say that he would do this or do that?
Okay.
I mean,
but my point is that we're going to jump down a Rabiot's throat, right? He might be shady.
It's not going to jump down Rabiot's throat. It's nothing to do with Rabiot. It has to do with the decision-making process of why he's a target.
I know, and we both agree on that. But
all right, so that's my point. He's shown nothing.
Coming in.
Colm, he's shown nothing that says he's a top-level player. Why didn't another club identify him as the solution to their problem?
This is my point. It has to be Ten Hag's decision that he's going for Rabiot. It's nothing. It's not coming from up here.
But Ten Hag didn't scout Rabiot. Do you think Ten Hag scouted Rabiot at Ajax?
Well, I don't think he scouted him.
All right, so it really has nothing to do with him.
He identified him as a target.
So United scouting department, recruitment department doesn't do anything?
Evidently not. Look where we are.
Okay, so they're
evidently not
incompetent then.
Of course, we've been saying this for weeks.
We got there in the end.
We've been
That's what I'm talking about. It's completely incompetent.
Who else is there out there at the moment that we can sign? Ruben Neves, Yuri Tielemans. Why are we not going for these signings? Alexander Mitrovic. I take Mitrovic up front. Why are we not signing Mitrovic? Why are we going for these players that we're linked with? Gakpo, who hasn't even performed anywhere other than the Dutch league. What's this all about? Well,
you're telling me it's the result of these are all good players. You know, Rabiot, good player. Obviously Ten Hag's choice. They've scouted him. It's a result of a long, drawn out process of elimination that he demonstrates the ability and characteristics that he needs to play Manchester United's team. Did that not happen with Gakpo? Did that not happen with other players? I mean, it's the same club.
There's my point exactly. You've just hit the nail on the head there.
Mm-hmm.
This is all coming from Ten Hag's recruitment plus Manchester United scouting department. It's not working, mate. Simple. It's not working. So if something's not working like this, there needs to be a fix. There needs to be something different.
If Ten Hag wanted Rabiot, why didn't he sign him in May?
You tell me. Why did he not sign him in May?
Because he didn't want him.
Because he was going for Frankie de Jong, and it's got to the point where he thinks to himself, we might not get Frankie de Jong. We're getting late in the window. Let's go to my second target. Right. Who's the second target?
Not even the second target, mate. Here's the thing. United didn't get the players that Ten Hag asked for months ago. Okay? They didn't get the players most managers asked for. Okay? This is why they're in this mess. Didn't get a centre-back for Mourinho when he asked for it. Didn't get any of the players Mourinho asked for. Right? Solskjaer, did they get Sancho when he asked for him? No. Did they get Bellingham? No. Did they get Haaland? No. Okay? All these players missed out on. What were their alternatives? This is not the manager's fault. This is to do with the completely dysfunctional football club that is completely incapable and incompetent to execute on a proper strategic plan. They also have owners who nickel and dime everything on another continent, who don't operate on the same time zone, every minor detail. There's an article from Ollie Kay in The Athletic. I've done a wonderful breakdown of the bottleneck that is the Glazers when it comes to Manchester United's transfers, and how every minor detail has to be approved in Florida. Okay, this is set up to be dragged out for months. You can't operate a football club this way. Okay, they had a situation where they would allow United internally anything 10,000 or less to be approved without asking them. Anything more than 10,000 had to be approved by the Glazers. This is why this happens, Colm. It's got nothing to do with Ten Hag saying, you know what, if we can't get De Jong, we'll get him. This is a result of Manchester United budget issue saying we can't afford a top-level striker. If we did, we wouldn't be after Arnautovic. We can't afford a top-level midfielder. If we did, we wouldn't be after a guy that his current club, who knows him better than anyone, is trying to pay him off to leave on a free. Right? I mean, whatever we think, Juventus are capable of making decisions about footballers. Okay? And they are deciding that you are so worthless, we will pay you to leave at 27, a footballer's prime. So how on earth does that guy end up being on Manchester United's list of targets when he's just had his worst season ever at Juventus? There's nothing that guy's demonstrated that says that's the solution to our problems, other than the fact his price is expedient. Same with Arnautovic. Fuck morals, fuck all that. His price is right. He'll do.
Okay, so you've said something very, very true here. And you say that this whole time, I know that there's something wrong with the board. We both spoke about it, ranking competence from the top right down. But you told me about 6 weeks ago, Ed Woodward wasn't his fault, blah, blah, blah. It's all the Glazers. Okay, right? You're now saying it's not Ten Hag's fault, it's all the Glazers. I know it's the Glazers, right? I know it's the Glazers. Mm-hmm. But whenever you come into a club and you tell the fans and you tell the fan base that you're going to do something and you don't do it, there's part of the blame lies with you.
Mate,
I know, but there's part of the blame that lies with you. I know.
You work in sports for a living, right? Now, we both know 90% of what gets said in press conferences is bullshit and bears no resemblance to reality of what goes on behind the scenes, right? This is a front. Ten Hag's not going to come out in his first interview and turn around and go, this fucking club's dysfunctional, it's a mess, and if it goes wrong, it's not my fault. I mean, it's just not realistic to expect that. You represent boxers. How many times do we hear in a fight, perfect training camp, and we know that's not true? It's nonsense, right? This is psychology. These players turned around and dug out Ranić for digging them out in press conferences. How on earth can Ten Hag turn around in a press conference, especially when you don't trust the people behind you to get you the players that you want or to get the players out that you want? When these players are going to determine your future. Graham Souness done an interview yesterday on Talksport and said perfectly, which summed up the problems at Manchester United. You take a player out, then they moan to their agent, then they moan to their friends, and then the leaks come, and then the agent leaks, and then this stuff happens, and then you get this vicious circle. So these are the people that are going to determine whether you're a success or failure or not. So you can come and dig them out in the press conference if you want, but it's not productive, and it has no correlation between any type of management that you'll get taught anywhere in any business school, right? You can disagree, but make your case.
I don't disagree because what you say is right, but then don't say nothing at all, Eric Ten Hag.
What's he supposed to say in a press conference, mate? What did Van Gaal say? What did Solskjaer say? What did Mourinho say?
But look at what it's caused in terms of regardless of who we sign, and this is a fact, or what happens at the football club, there's a media frenzy because we're that big, right? That's simple. The media stir things at this football club like no other. Any small detail happens at this football club and it's blown into massive proportion.
Of course.
Everyone gets upset at everything at this club. That's just part of being a Manchester United fan. You have to get used to it, right? Eric Ten Hag, in my opinion, issue here because he's promised the fans something he's not delivered. We don't know if Rabiot or Arnautovic are his targets, his signings. We don't know. We imagine that Arnautovic is, but you also don't think that Rabiot has anything to do with him. You think that just came from the scouting department. This is all hearsay.
I don't even think it came from the scouting department. I think it came from an agent.
Okay. So in any respect, he is the one that ultimately makes that final decision on saying, yeah, do you know what? Adrian Rabiot is a good player. Yes, Marco Arnautovic is a good player. Let's get him in. Arnautovic isn't a good player. Arnautovic is a bang average player with serious issues morally that we couldn't take at the football club. That was evident in terms of whenever there were so many emails sent yesterday and the club decided not to go for him, which is laughable because this football club in the hands of the fans in one regard, but not in another. So where does this fairy tale end? When does it come to the point that every single Manchester United fan emails Richard Arnold, emails continuously, turns up at the stadium, doesn't enter the stadium? Why are we not at that point yet? Why is this just all continuing to unravel into what it is? It's just a total mess.
Mate, now you know you're a smart lad. So you know that when Ten Hag's making promises, you know what he's capable of actually delivering. That's within his power and what isn't. All right. Now we both know that watching Manchester United as long as we have, or football as long as we have, a manager can't promise you signings. Okay? They just can't. Because it's not their remit. Right? Richard Arnold can't promise you that United are going to play a certain way. That's not his remit. That's a manager's remit. That's where their ability, power ends. When Ferguson left, most of that power went upstairs. So I'm asking, it's not reasonable to expect Ten Hag, if he turns around and says in the press conference, we're going to do this, do this, do this, do this. And first of all, he didn't promise any player, right? In fact, he repeatedly shoots questions down about potential signings. Although all he really says is we need players, right? He didn't make any promises about anyone ever. So if you've got 22 soldiers behind you that are going to determine your success or failure as a leader, and you're going to dig them out before you've even had a chance to work with them, you've already signed your own death warrant. You're finished. You might as well leave right there. Unless you work for a football club that you trust will move those players out. Now, we both know, having watched United for long enough, to know that they don't do that. They consistently undermine a manager's ability to control the dressing room by not disciplining players that are consistently unruly, by not getting players out long before their unnecessary contract renewals to protect market value. None of these things are about supporting the manager. So it's really important that separation is made so that we can fix this problem, because another manager is going to take the blame for them, when in reality, if you don't give the guy the tools that he needs to do the job, he can't do the job you hired him to do. It's just that simple.
You're right in one respect, but at the end of the day, right, the manager develops a list of his targets. It's up to him at any point when he goes to plan B. It's not the people that are negotiating. If he hears back from whoever it is that's negotiating, like, this isn't going as swimmingly as what we thought we did, we're not going to get De Jong, it's up to him to move on to his plan B. Clearly, for whatever reason, whether he's informed or not in the De Jong deal, he's left it too late. He's now clutching at straws, you'll say, to go for Adrian Rabiot, right? Because that's what it looks like. So that's where I think he's failed in his remit as manager. So that's my opinion on it. And
that's fair. But let me ask.
No,
that's a fair comment. But let me ask you this, mate. Right, serious question. Maybe there's been dialogue internally at Old Trafford where they've said to him, "We're really confident that we'll still get him, so there's no need to move on to another target." In which case, it would make sense that they continue to persevere. That's been a message from United to people on the outside that have asked that question.
Maybe.
So if that conversation took place, should Ten Hag tell him? I'm asking you. I mean, it's a fair point.
No.
He has to take responsibility.
What you're saying is correct in terms of if they're telling him that and they're feeding him that information. But then when they're moving on to the plan B, it's one of his designated targets.
No, he definitely takes responsibility. There's no question.
So that's going back to my point that ultimately it doesn't maybe end with him, but he's also part of it. You've kind of said
no, he's definitely part of it. Yeah, there's no question about that.
He is part of it.
You're right.
He's definitely part of it. And he's the one that ultimately is making the decision. He is the manager of the football club. So whether you like it or not, he's the one that picks the 11 players that go on the pitch every single week. He's the one that picks the subs, and he's the one that picks the squad.
Of course.
So he's the one developing the targets. He's the one that's taking information from the scouts from everywhere else to make these decisions. So ultimately, he's failing in his role as manager, whether you like that or not, because you like him and you're backing him as a manager. And I back him too. I want him to do well, but ultimately, he's failing in some of these aspects.
But I would hold him more accountable for the things that are immediately under his control. If the team doesn't improve, which he has to do, if the team still looks tactically inept, he takes responsibility. I think he made mistakes at the weekend. I didn't understand the 3 subs on the 90th minute. Right?
Again,
I didn't understand that. I think, but he has to be allowed to make some mistakes in the beginning because this is part of the discovery process.
We thought that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But why are you not bringing Garnacho on with more time?
No,
listen. The only sort of player on the bench who can change the game for us. That's the truth.
But football fans can debate these things, and look, ultimately, Ten Hag will be judged on how United play, and I still feel there's enough in that Manchester United team for them to be doing much better, and he's responsible for certain things that United need to improve on. There's no doubt, but what he's not responsible for, mate, is securing signings. That's up to the football club, and that's up to every football club. And if they don't get the players that he asked for,
developing targets, he is responsible for.
He's certainly responsible for developing targets, but I mean, the target is irrelevant. What I can have a target for if I've got a purchasing agent and I don't go buy this and they haven't got the ability to secure it. I mean, ultimately the transaction and the success of that transaction is up to the football club because Ten Hag has no ability to affect change in that area. All he can do is tell you who to sign. What they do after that is up to the football club. If they fail to get him the targets, or any football club hires a guy to do a job and fails to get him the targets, there's a direct consequence to that. That's obvious. Now he doesn't get to divorce himself from selecting Rabiot. It's not fair to say that's 100% Manchester United decision. That's also his decision too. It's his.
That was my point.
I have no doubt that he was the one that said, "Let's go get Arnautovic." I don't believe Manchester United forced Arnautovic on him. Right? I believe that was a Ten Hag and McLaren decision, 100%. So you're correct on that. There's no question. That will be a Ten Hag decision. And it's a wrong decision, and he deserves severe criticism for that, for thinking that a player who's a flagrant racist fits in with Manchester United, because there's no excuse for him not knowing that.
Right, let's move on to some questions because I think we're going on a bit, and I'm about the box ahead of you here. But let me see. Here, first question up from Wayne Tiggs, who he's on every week. Where is the big rebuild plan? It feels like panic stations with Rabiot and Arnautovic, and who ultimately controls the transfers, Ten Hag or Mota?
Yeah, so we've just debated this. Look, ultimately, Ten Hag, just like every other manager, ask for players, and it's up to the Glazers and the recruitment department to secure those players. And it's really important we make that distinction so that we can properly evaluate John Murta and Richard Arnold, so that we don't apportion blame to Ten Hag that's not his. Ultimately, Richard Arnold and John Murta have failed him, and the Glazers, of course.
Would no Champions League this year be enough to make the Glazers sell from Jason Anderson?
It's a good question. We've been asking this question, mate, as you know, for how long? We don't know what the breaking point is. But as soon as their ability to take money to the football club is affected, then I think that's going to be the catalyst. There's going to be a lot of interest, and I think it's hard for me to see how they hold on to the football club because there's
Ultimately,
no.
it falls down to the sponsorship.
Yeah.
If we fail to make Champions League, sponsorship takes a hit. Surely the Glazers have to
Yes, you're
fall.
right, mate.
Simple
That
as that. So
100% right.
short term pain for long term gain. If we don't make it this season, there's an end goal, and hopefully then it gets the Glazers right.
100%.
Let me see. What would be the final nail in the Glazers' coffin before the end of the season, if there is one? From Paul Carson.
Look, I think there's only one thing the Glazers care about, and that's money, right? So it's the only thing that's going to alter their behavior. It's the only thing that's going to force them into a decision. You can't shame these people. They have no bottom. So they're also not connected to United in the same way you and I are. So they don't feel the perturbations in the same way. They don't feel the perturbations when United lose in the same way. I mean, that was the first game they've been to in years. You and I experience United on a micro level. Every little alteration, change affects our mood. That just doesn't happen for them. So Manchester United fans haven't just had to deal with their own demise. They've had to deal with watching Liverpool and City win everything and have their noses rubbed in it. This would never be acceptable at Real Madrid. This would never be acceptable at the world's top football clubs that are, adequately funded and have serious intention of success. I mean, when Barcelona were dominating in La Liga, right, under Guardiola, look what Perez did, Ronaldo, Kaká, all that. I mean, the contrast is massive.
Mark Goldbridge asked, if we get Milinkovic-Savic instead of De Jong, what are your thoughts? The club is acting like these are clear desperation signings, like Rabiot have been targets all along. Well, first of all, I think we could actually sign Milinkovic-Savic and De Jong together because they're two different players. Milinkovic-Savic would be wasted playing in a deeper role, in my opinion. He would be better further on up the pitch. He's similar in what we have in terms of Bruno in a way. He offers us a bit more physicality, but if we're going to play him in a defensive role, it's going to be wasted. So in my opinion, you still need a 6 if you sign Milinkovic-Savic. So I don't get that one.
But Milinkovic-Savic makes sense if you sign a 6, but I agree with you 100% that if he doesn't, I mean, it makes no. Here's the thing. Watching United the weekend, I felt they needed 2 midfielders, right? I felt they needed to replace McTominay and Fred. So even if you don't get a 6 and you get an 8, I still think you solve one problem. What do you think?
I think we definitely need 2 midfielders, and that's where I think Rabiot comes into it. If we sign Rabiot and we sign De Jong, it's a successful transfer window because we need strength and depth in midfield. We've got Eriksen, Bruno, McTominay, Fred. Is that it? Am I leaving anyone out?
Obviously Eriksen.
Eriksen
still there, I suppose. And
yeah, so I mean, obviously there's options there, but I think we need 2 more midfielders. Rabiot and De Jong do the business. Rabiot and Milinkovic-Savic, I could live with. Milinkovic-Savic and De Jong, and we're laughing. But again, if or when they happen, I'm not too sure. So I don't know. I'm not too sure about that one. We'll get another 2 questions in. Is there realistically a billionaire out there who will want to save our club from its misery?
Tons of them. The thing is about football, and this is what the Glazers know. No billionaires ban United because it's a smart business decision, right? It's a loss leader in football. Billionaires are egotistical, and they're not going to pull out of United because the stadium's dilapidated. They're not going to pull out of ban United because of things that matter to you and me, because they have the money to fix all that. And the value of Manchester United isn't in the stadium. It's not even in the playing squad. It's in the strength of their brand, the brand recognition. It's global. And maybe you own a different business that you want to piggyback it off the back of that, which is what NFL owners have done. And other football clubs in the City Group and all that, they've used it as a proxy. So I do think there'd be plenty of interest if United were. I mean, when United were allegedly being shopped around before, there was tons of interest. There was tons of interest of billionaires in Chelsea. So you just want it to fall into the right hands. You just don't want it to fall into the Saudis or something like that. Because to me, that's going from the frying pan into the fire.
Elite. I think just on that, I think it's evident in Chelsea, whenever Chelsea were up for sale, how quick the turnover was, how quick it changed, how quick there was people interested. Shows that Manchester United are always going to be a lucrative option for any billionaire, regardless of what's going on at the football club. So I think we'll not be short for buyers, in my opinion, because Chelsea weren't either.
You're right.
Elite analysis says, are the board really this bad, or are they taking the piss? Why didn't they go after Neves, Ruiz, Sinagro, Frankie de Jong? We had 0 centre defensive midfield players who are good enough at the club after we just lose Pogba and Matic. And again, that's just a reactive, not proactive situation.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
We've sat and watched Pogba go, Matic go. We've stayed with McFred, who last season weren't good enough. So what's to say that they're going to be any better this year? It's just complete shambles from start to finish, really, isn't it?
No, 100% right, man. And you take a look at proper continuation planning. That's buying Camavinga and Tchouaméni to replace Kroos and Modric. That's what you do, right? And you need never or have any foresight. They never replace before because they never know what they're going to do. It's very difficult for you to look 12 months ahead and say we're going to be here. They don't know. And so yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I don't know. It's just such it's a reflection of just how broken the football club is, and I'm talking about on the most basic level.
I think actually our best option at the moment is to play Martinez as a holding midfielder.
Yeah,
I think he could do it definitely. I think if we don't sign anyone else, he has to go in there regardless. I think if we do sign people, I'd still like to see him in there. I think he could play that role easily.
I agree.
One more question here. There's loads to go through, but one from Jermura says, lads, will we sign 3 players before the window closes? I'd love to see a right back. I don't think Dallo does it. Wan-Bissaka clearly doesn't do it. I'd like a right back of some sort. I'd like a 2 midfielders and a striker. I'd like 4 signings all in. I think 2 midfielders, a striker, and a right back's minimum for this window. But again, I'm not too sure if we'll get it. You think we'll only get 1 big player and a couple of smaller signings, so I'm not too sure.
I still think there's a big midfield signing out there. Well, if De Jong doesn't happen, I still think United will go big on a midfielder because I think they did set aside the money, to be fair, for De Jong, and I still think that's there. Maybe Milinkovic-Savic, of course, his brother was at United years ago, Vanya Milinkovic-Savic, the young goalkeeper. So the football club will be familiar to him. I still think that could a big midfielder could happen. If you look at how United are trying to do business, Colm, they're looking at spending most of their money on a defensive midfielder, maybe a makeshift striker up front. I would have preferred to have seen a younger striker up front that they're grooming to replace Ronaldo rather than someone that can do a job with Ronaldo and then need to replace both of them again at the end of the season. Yeah, I still think United. I completely agree with you. By the way, I think United needed a right back, 2 midfielders, which is obvious, a winger and a forward, on top of what they've already done. There's no question about that. And I agree with you 100%. Those would have been the signings I would have made.
We've nowhere really to go from there, and if we don't make any signings, we're in trouble. I think top 4 is attainable at the moment. If we don't make any more signings,
do you think so, mate? Do you honestly think so? I mean, do you think top 4?
Truthfully, I think it is. Like, I'm not going to get beat up because we got beaten the first game of the season against Brighton, which we shouldn't have got beaten that game. We shouldn't have lost that game, but no one performed. It's not as if we even played half decent football at any stage of that game because we didn't. There was a stage maybe in the second half where we pushed them a bit and we looked a bit better, but even at that, we weren't at the races, and sometimes this happens, especially with a new team being put together. So I'm not going to get hung up on it too much, but I think top 4 is definitely an option if we make more signings. If we don't, forget about it.
No, I agree. Because to me, man, one of the things that really concerned me about the weekend was the inability of McTominay and Fred to play that way, the way Ten Hag wants to play. And to me, unless United solve that problem and a problem up front, it's really hard to see where they get the goals to finish top 4. It's really hard to see where they remain compact enough to get top 4. And maybe what Ten Hag will have to do if he doesn't get those signings is change his style to make United hard to beat rather than exciting to watch.
He might have to, because even De Gea looks as if he's struggling with playing out from the back. It's not. Yeah. We know he's not good with the ball at his feet. So if you're sticking with your game plan and you're going to go ahead with it, he might have to change things up because it might not work. I mean, Maguire, I know a lot of people criticise Maguire at the weekend. I don't think he was that bad, really.
I don't think he was that
Maguire at
bad
the weekend,
either.
no, I think Maguire was like he didn't do anything great. Don't get me wrong, he was average, but he didn't do anything that bad. I know people are jumping down his throat as well. Not too sure about that one. Obviously McFred had a stinker at the weekend. Dallo was shocking, apart from a 5-minute spell in the second half where he was half decent. So there's a lot of work to be done there, sadly.
It was interesting, mate. I was listening to Andy Mitten on Over the Ball, which is a Cork radio station, and he was reading out texts that he was getting from a high-end football coach, and they were talking about a lot of what was going on tactically that would go over the head of most laymen, and they were talking about the space that Dallo was finding and how Graham Potter counteracted that, and counteracted Ten Hag's system. And I think there's some really good points in there that backs up your point about Ten Hag's responsibility. I don't think he's blameless for what happened at the weekend. I think you can't turn around and say a manager's blameless for his results. That's nonsense. Regardless of whether they get the players that they want, no manager gets every player they want. Nobody, right? So you have to work with players. You have to work with players you don't necessarily want or trust, and that's part of what a coach's job is to do, is to improve the players that he has, play with the players that he has. So you have a good point on that in that regard, no question about it. And I think that some of the things that worked in the Eredivisie won't work in the Premier League, and Ten Hag's going to have to learn that fast.
Definitely. I mean, just look at how slow we were at the blocks the weekend. Like, just look at how Rashford. If Rashford had finished those chances, would be in a completely different situation.
Yeah.
Everyone can get down Bruno's neck, and I was getting down Bruno's neck on WhatsApp to you until you made the point of, well, Bruno will have 2 assists here if Rashford could finish. And it's true, because Bruno didn't have a good game, but he had 2 moments of magic where he put Rashford in and Rashford couldn't finish. So, I mean, there's so many different... Like, I actually said a few weeks ago about what happens if Martial gets injured, because we're wanting him. Why did Ronaldo not start? I don't care. Half-fit Ronaldo's better than what we started with at the weekend. And we can go down that route again in another point on the Ronaldo argument. But a half-fit Ronaldo from the start at the weekend is definitely better than what we started with. It was shocking. So, I mean...
Yeah, probably right. Yeah.
In terms of Rashford, I mean, I don't know what's wrong with him. But this is make or break this season. If he doesn't do it this year, he has to go.
Completely agree. I completely agree. I mean, Rashford is a player I've rated really, really highly. But even the miss he made at the weekend, the one he had the weekend where he was offside, he didn't know he was offside. I mean,
he wasn't even offside.
It's bread and butter, Colm. If your striker's not taking those chances, I mean, how many times did Rania complain about missed chances? If your striker can't take those chances, we talked on a podcast, what was it, 2 weeks or 2 ago, saying United need 60+ goals from this team to finish in the top 4. Where's that coming from?
I know, it's worrying.
Very worrying, you know. And look, as much as I find Arnautovic's despicable, I understand why United wants a reserve target man, right? And clearly,
of course, he's not the answer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if the ability was right, the football club has to be guided by its values. You can't be turning around and signing players with this. I mean, anyway. We've already dug this out, but it's just I think that's part of what worries me about United, is that there is no strict principles that guide the football club anymore, and so everything is about what is financially expedient. And I don't know. I don't think you can build a winning football team. If you take a look at Malacia had a Twitter account 5 minutes after signing for United. Rabio will too. And I don't see the changes that we talked about before about that needed to happen. I just don't see it.
Nope. It's hard.
What do you think? I mean, what do you think about it?
I just think the club commercially takes over what's the on the pitch, what we're producing. No one cares. The only people that care is the fans.
Well, let me ask you a question, mate. What commercially do United have anymore that's worth anything?
Exactly. What is it? We're always going to be a big brand. It's like the Yankees. Do you know what I mean? The Yankees always have that commercial brand because everyone wears their caps. No matter where you go in the world, you're going to see a Manchester United jersey. That's a fact. I don't think I've ever been
Yeah,
anywhere not seeing a United jersey.
I think.
There's
Sorry, man.
yes, we're going to be affected commercially because
Hmm.
of our on field success, and hopefully that drives the Glazers out. But really, at the end of the day, there's always going to be turnover there because commercially we're lucrative. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about this, and the Yankees thing is a good comparison. I know we'll have to go here in a minute. But the one thing that is different with the Yankees, I suppose, and this is evident, by the way, for someone who lives in America, when you look at the interaction with your tweets during the day and during the night, they're very different because American sport and culture is very different. And Americans are much more tolerant of their franchises being businesses and run as such. Right? I mean, they're bemused at United fans and most football fans' aversion to football clubs being used as a vehicle for profit because they're so conditioned to it here that that's a normal expectation. Yes, of course, owners take money out. Yes, of course, the they tank their teams because there's an incentive to do so. Yes, of course, if they don't like it, they up sticks and move somewhere else. But European sport and culture is totally different. It's much more militant to do things like that. It's so the backlash when you do things like that, I think, is far greater on social media than what it would be in America. So that is intimidating the sponsors because they're so obtainable, they're so reachable now through social media, and I think that is one difference. But I agree with you in the overall sense that these massive global brands, I think United's current, obviously lucrative, but I think United's current plate is so bad it now overshadows their past.
I don't know. I disagree with that last point. I know it is bad, but I don't
Fair
think it
enough.
overshadows the past because I think
Hmm.
we've just said there's going to be a line of billionaires that want to take over this club
Yeah,
if they're up for sale, and that tells you
absolutely.
enough.
Fair point.
So I think that speaks volumes. And if we ever the work we are going to sell the club, what's to say these owners that we get in are going to be better
I
than the
know
Glazers?
exactly,
Because
man. It's
there's a
exactly right.
50-60% chance that it's going to be even worse or
Yes,
the
you're
same.
exactly right.
So everyone thinking that it's going to be the be all end all. Let's get rid of the Glazers. It's not because we don't know who's coming in next. You might strike lucky and you might get a great owner. You might get someone like the Leicester owners, who are
Hmm.
unbelievable owners, by the way.
Hmm.
That's who you want running your club. The Leicester owners are the face of, like, you want that to be at the head of your club. You don't want people like Glazers, but there's a good chance most of these billionaires are like the Glazers. Simple as that.
No, you're right, man. It's really it's hard to see. Football itself has become so poisoned anyway. I mean, it's not just the Glazers. I mean, if you look at European football as a whole and the pursuit of profit for the top teams, it's it's utterly tragic, and you know that has ruined the competitive balance in places like Germany. Bayern Munich's won their 10th league title. If you go to a German team and say about a European Super League, they essentially have two leagues in their league anyway, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, what chance have Eintracht Frankfurt got of winning the league? They're Europa League winners. They just got demolished by Bayern Munich, absolutely demolished. And this is like Liverpool and City, and it kills me to say it, but Liverpool, fair play to them, they've done it in a way that they've showed other teams how to compete, but they're so far ahead of everyone else. I mean,
Oh, my light years.
there's no one catching Liverpool and City this year, no
No,
one.
no,
But
no.
anyway, I think this is one of the things that's most disillusioning to myself is the continued direction of football and the compromising of values for the pursuit of pure profit. There's nothing wrong with profit. There's nothing wrong with making money. There's nothing wrong with any of that. It all depends on your incentives, and I just find it really tragic. But
Yeah,
you brought
spot
up a
on, Dave.
point last week that I wanted to illustrate again because I was wrong and you were right. Was about players who should have identical mentality to Cristiano Ronaldo. And there's a reason why United under Ralph Rangnick employed sports psychologists. And there's a reason why they exist. Not everyone can have that mentality. And players are subject to things that happen at home. They're subject to things that happen in the stadium. Not everyone has the same mentality. Not everyone deals with it the same way. Maybe I was a bit rude with some of my disagreements on that because you're absolutely right, and I completely accept the point that sports psychologists and the fact some players just need different types of treatment. Um, that's exactly correct, and
I
that
just
is
think if we had
something
a
that's
team,
true.
if we had a team with the mentality of Cristiano Ronaldo, we'd win the league every year.
Yeah.
And it's as
Well, I
simple as
mean, no
that.
one, and you're
That's how
right,
I
but
put
no
it.
one does. And
No one does, of
most
course. But
human
I'm just
beings
saying,
just aren't
if we
like that.
did,
You're right.
yeah,
For someone like myself who's a big advocate of mental health, I think it was important to point that out because I think it was unfair to expect that everyone is a mental machine and just isn't affected by the vicissitudes of life. We're all affected by that, and it's impossible to expect. I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo lost a child last year. I can't imagine how
yeah,
difficult that must be, and the grief. He also brought up another point that I think is fair to point out, but maybe he did have problems with his family that meant he couldn't travel, and maybe I was a bit insensitive with that because you're probably right. Maybe he did have domestic problems that meant he couldn't travel. Maybe there's something going on with his wife or postpartum or anything could be happening that he has a right to print the privacy on.
well, that's it. We don't know. It's all hearsay, and we just bicker and talk about all these things, but we really don't know. There's certain things we do know about, but there's a lot of things we don't. And even the things that we touched on today, we don't know the ins and outs. We don't know if Ten Hag wanted Rabiot. We don't know if Rabiot was proposed by John Murder. We don't know if Rabiot's agent proposed Rabiot.
No,
We
that's
don't,
true.
and we won't. So it's all, and that's why it's good that we both have our opinions, and
Well,
everyone else. Hopefully, we cover everyone else's opinions who watches as well.
well, the one thing you could definitely argue with Rabiot, Colm, is it is so left field that it's hard to imagine that United weren't aware of him in some capacity, right? He's not an obvious choice, so it's hard to believe that a player like Rabiot, who is he's not obscure, that United and Ten Hag weren't aware of him. And look, it could be the guy turns out to be a really surprising signing. I mean, I remember when they signed Jason Park. You could easily turn around and go, no, it's not
Yeah,
exactly a Galactico, not exactly a superstar, but he turned out to be one of the most important players. And sometimes it's those nondescript players that turn out to be the engine of your team. And the last thing United need in their dressing room is another brand. So, this is a guy that
100%.
has no social media, accounts and stuff. So I'm not against that. And Ten Hag, like I say, whoever United saying, Ten Hag has to take responsibility for it because maybe he didn't target them, but he has the ability to say no.
Yeah, and that's it. And that was the point that I was making. But yeah.
All right. Well, hey, are we done, mate? Are we anything else to do?
Oh, nah, I think I've covered enough questions. There was loads, but we'll cover a bit more next week. I think we went over. We're an hour and a half here tonight,
All
so
right.
long one moment.
And congratulations on the weekend, Michael Conlon getting a win. Absolutely delighted. And I know you're delighted, mate. So great to see it. And I just want to, before we go, give a quick shout out to a lad that messaged me. I want to give a shout out to Mike78 on Twitter. I wish you all the very best, mate. And thanks to every one of you who download and listen to this podcast. Thanks immensely to my co-host here, Colm McGuigan, who deserves to give me a punch in the face once a week. I don't doubt that. I'm extremely grateful for his sportsmanship, for his exceptional argumentative skills, and for making really, really good points. Most of the points you make, I have to disagree with them, and some of them I agree with. There's good arguments both sides. Thanks to all of you for downloading and for listening to it, folks. All the very best. Colm, all the best, mate. Thanks
Thanks
very
a
much
million,
as
mate.
always.
Speak soon.
Cheers, mate. See ya. Bye.